By the way, I left pending the part of code where an event is emitted after countdown ends. If you go to the code in timer service, you can see that before we were emitting this event in the process countdown method with this onComplete emit. The problem is that event emitters belong to components, not services. Event emitters is a mechanism that Angular gives you in order to push information outside of the component. So, because I moved process countdown to the service, I have to follow a different approach to tell my component in a synchronous way that my countdown has finished. I need to use the observer pattern. This is exactly what the HTTP service of Angular does. When you use the method get, for example, you do this.http.get of a URL, this is returning an observable. An observable is an object that implements the pattern observer over a flow of information along time. So, an observable allows you to subscribe with a function that will be called each time the observer receives a new value. You can use subscribe in order to do this, and inside you define an arrow function that receives this data, and inside this function you do whatever you want every time you receive the event. Okay, so you'll do the same with the timer service. I remove all this, I open timer component TS, and now imagine this timer is returning an observable, and I call this observable countdown end $. So I use it here, this.timer countdown end $. This is a frequent convention to say that this property here is an observable. In this case, the event is not gonna return any value, it's just to announce that the countdown have finished. So I subscribe here because this is returning an observable. Here inside, I'm not passing this data because it said this observable is not gonna return any value. And inside, now that you are already in the component, you can use the event emitter as before. So I can console log as I had before, countdown end, and then use this.onComplete.emit. Because this onComplete, now it exists on my component. It's an event emitter. There's a missing detail in that side. To prevent memory leaks, you should cancel the subscription when the component is destroyed, but in order to do so, you need a reference to this subscription. So what I'm gonna do is just to come here, declare the property private countdown and subscription. It's gonna be of type subscription, and I set it to null. Of course, I have to import the subscription from rxjs, and now I need to get the reference to this subscription. I use this.countdown and subscription equals my current subscription. So now I get the reference, and then in my ng destroy, I can call this.countdown and subscription.unsubscribe. This is the easiest part. How to use the observable. If the service gives you an observable, the only thing you need is to use it, subscribing like this and not subscribing like that. Okay, but how to create the observable? Here is where things complicate a little bit, and I'm gonna show you how to do it here in timer service. You need to declare a property of type subject. Here on top, private countdown and source equals new subject of type void, because I said this observable is not gonna return anything, it will only emit events. I have to import this subject from here. Okay, what is a subject? This is not a class about reactive programming. That's a huge topic, and if you're interested about it, I really recommend you to read the docs on http:/rxjs. ReactiveX talks about several libraries on this topic, and RxJS is the JavaScript library. Anyway, what you need to do is that a subject is an observable object that can handle several subscriptions and that can also emit events. However, you don't want the component to subscribe directly to the subject because you don't want to create events from outside. You want timer to create events, but you don't want your component to use this timer to create events. So the component will only have access to the observable part of your subject. Because of that, you need to create a public property because you want access from outside. Countdown and $, the observable we were using on the other side, equals this.countdown and source.asObservable. Because the subject, this countdown and source, is an observable and more things. It is an observable because you can subscribe to it, but it also allows you to emit events. However, this countdown $ we are creating is only an observable. Great, you have a private property that creates events, and the public one that provides the results of the other, and you have subscribed this last one from the component. Now we have to emit this timer end event. Remember, we do this in process countdown. Here it is commented because onComplete doesn't work here. But what I can do is this.countdown end source, so my subject dot next. And with next, I'm emitting an event. Inside next, I can send values. In my case, this is an empty event, so I won't put any value inside. I can remove this comment from here because I'm doing so on the component side, and that's all. If we put a short countdown to go faster, 3 seconds for example, and we go to the browser to see the results, you can see now how this message of the countdown finish is shown on the console when the timer ends. And that has been emitted not from timer service, but from timer component, this countdown end here. So, to sum up, what I have achieved is to push an event outside of the component, but generated from the service. In fact, I can move to my app component ts, create here method log countdown end, and here inside just console log countdown has finished, use it from my HTML, so here add this onComplete equals log countdown end. I can copy this and paste on my different counters. I move to timer component to remove also this console log. And then what I'm achieving now is that when a countdown handled by this timer service ends, it emits an event. This event is also emitted through my component. Then it finally arrives through this binding to the onComplete event on the template. It arrives to the root component. So when I click play on here, I wait, and then this countdown has finished has been emitted not by the timer component but by the root component. I've been able to pass an event from inside to outside.